D.C. south.
Even as many states are cleaning up from a weekend storm.
This is our traditional winter, finally getting one after a few years.
Deadly avalanche, why this year's weather is leading to sudden snow slides in Utah.
You can't outsmart the avalanche game.
That lack of snow is also a problem for farmers.
Unless we get significant rain this spring, they're going to have to start rationing water.
A type of bass is found in a San Antonio creek for the very first time. Environmental experts are thrilled.
Gives the San Antonio River Authority confidence that the health of the creek is improving.
And before the next flakes fall, learn how to shovel snow safely.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Emma Withrow. Over the next week, people living in the Plains, the Midwest, and the Northeast could see 3 separate winter storms. The first one takes shape in the Plains today before heading east. It'll bring snow and ice to Ohio River Valley and the Mid-Atlantic tomorrow into Wednesday morning. The second storm will develop tomorrow night in the Central Plains, bringing snow from Kansas to the Great Lakes and into Pennsylvania and western New York Wednesday, and then into New England on Thursday. And then finally, a third storm hits the West Coast on Wednesday and could bring even more winter weather to the central and eastern U.S. Meteorologist Jordan Evans has a closer look at the snowfall totals in the Mid-Atlantic over the next 2 days.
Accumulating snow expected across Virginia to Maryland, even places around West Virginia and Kentucky also getting that snow as early as Tuesday, with winter storm watches already in effect. Take a look at the snowfall map. We're talking about 6 to 9 inches from D.C. south toward Richmond, much of central Virginia to southern Maryland and parts of the Delmarva, and possibly 3 to 6 inches of snow around Lexington, Kentucky to Louisville and parts of Charleston, West Virginia as well. Ice accumulations will favor the higher terrain of southwest Virginia, including Lynchburg to Roanoke and Blacksburg in southwest Virginia and parts of the Appalachian Mountains in western North Carolina. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Jordan Evans.
Well, it was a snowy weekend in New England where up to a foot of snow piled up. We have reports from Maine, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, starting with Mike Carullo in Providence.
Firing up snow blowers, breaking out shovels, and clearing off cars. Southern New England is digging out.
For me, this is a lot of fun. I start early. I start in the backyard and I do the front yard and the walk. And yeah, this is a big event for me.
Driving around town, you're going to see plenty of massive snow piles just like this one. That's because plow drivers were out in full force, making sure parking lots like this one were clear so businesses could open up.
It's a New England thing. You live in Massachusetts, you know, it's part of the deal. So here we are.
Snowy streets across the area made for tough travel conditions. On Cape Cod, this car crashed in slick conditions on Route 28 South around 2 a.m. More than 8 inches of snow coming down on the New Hampshire coast. Some New Englanders say this kind of weather comes with the territory.
Yeah, this is our traditional winter, finally getting one after a few years, so I'm excited.
Rob and Ethan Aspinwall woke up to a snowy city of Portland and knew exactly how they wanted to spend their Sunday.
Well, we wanted to go sledding. We went to 3 different hills.
At places like the Eastern Prom, we saw many people taking advantage of the 8 to 12 inches of snow that piled up. With the slow start to this winter in December and January now forgotten.
The best powder snow we've had in a couple of years. It's been really good.
2 avalanches over the weekend killed 1 man and injured a second in Utah. The snow broke loose north of the Alta Ski Resort, less than an hour from Salt Lake City. As Christian Cedar reports, there is a lot of weak snowpack there due to the lack of snowfall that happened this winter.
We've been seeing a lot of avalanche activity today.
Shaking Utah's mountain terrain, one near Silver Fork area of Big Cottonwood Canyon. 1 man is dead and another survived but suffered a lower leg injury. The second avalanche happened at Dutch Draw. The skiers were caught in the slide. 2 managed to ski out, but 1 was buried. Acting fast, the other 2 dug the skier out.
A lot of snow, a lot of wind, and it overloaded a weak snowpack.
Greg Gagne with the Utah Avalanche Center is noticing this winter's snowpack is unusually weak, leading to dangerous avalanche conditions.
Usually by this time of the year, the snowpack is beginning to gain strength, and we're not seeing the widespread avalanche activity that we've been seeing this year, but we're continuing to see it.
Gagne attributes this instability to inconsistent snowfall.
What happens is the snow that has fallen, it turns into this weak, sugary snow that it's incapable of providing a base for additional snow on top.
These conditions are ideal for triggering avalanches.
When that happens, you can't outsmart the avalanche game. Right now, what I'm advising people to do is just simply avoid avalanche terrain.
But if you decide to venture into the back country,
you have to assess the snowpack and you have to give an allowance for the variability that what you may determine in one area may be totally different in another area.
Just how strong were the winds in Colorado last Friday? Well, they were strong enough to blow out car windows there. Dozens of people at Pikes Peak State College in Colorado Springs returned to their cars only to find shattered glass. A college maintenance employee told a local TV station he sees the same phenomenon every few years, but this might have been the worst yet. Part of the southwest Utah is experiencing extreme drought. Snowpack levels are 22% of average, and precipitation is lacking in a big way. A fourth-generation farmer tells Hauck Kelleher if things don't improve, they'll have to start rationing water there.
The first of the year, first part of January, but never late January, and especially into February.
Stout and other farmers in the region will only receive a fraction of the amount of water they usually do.
And most of our farmers do irrigate directly off the rivers, and so they're only going to see probably about 25% of their normal water that they receive.
Zach Renstrom of the Washington County Water Conservancy District says that farmers typically start irrigating in March, and without early runoff, they will feel this impact quickly.
The soil is so dry, so when a farmer does put water out on those crops or those fields, it's just going to disappear and get sucked up by the soil before it could go to the plants.
Stout grows hay and alfalfa here on his farm to feed his cows, and he said they had a good growing year last year, so they should be okay for now. But coming this summer and into next year, if this persists, they're going to have to start purchasing hay, which can get costly.
If hay's high, cattle are low, and so it doesn't make sense to feed cows because your hay is more valuable, and then hay goes low and cattle goes up, which is what it's at right now.
A new type of fish was recently discovered in a creek in San Antonio, Texas. It's significant because of what it means for the overall health of the creek and nearby waterways. Meteorologist Joe DiCarlo has more on the recent discovery.
Guadalupe bass were recently discovered here in the San Pedro Creek for the first time ever.
And the reason why that's so exciting is because San Pedro Creek is adjacent to the Mission Reach, where that species was reintroduced starting in 2015.
The fact that the fish traveled into the San Pedro Creek gives the San Antonio River Authority confidence that the health of the creek is improving, something they've been aiming to achieve.
It gives us that much more confidence that this species and others will eventually make their way back up into that system to increase the environmental health of the West Side Creek system.
Thanks to multiple projects in the works, the River Authority anticipates additional habitat restoration to take place over the next decade.
We want to increase some of the vegetation along the riverbanks, and we want to make the in-stream habitat more suitable for things like fish and bugs, and more suitable for birds coming in and using that habitat.
And that is welcome news for downtown San Antonio construction worker Robbie Payne, who enjoys spending his lunch break along the creek.
Before I relax here for lunch, get my mind together.
He thinks the work being done to restore the creek is exactly what the city needs and will go a long way.
That's a beautiful idea, because if you don't have fresh water, then you kill the fish, and you need the fish, and it brings fishermen, it brings meat, it brings a lot. We love it.
And check this out. A fossil found in Antarctica has revealed the oldest known modern bird. The 68-million-year-old fossil is from a creature related to the modern mallard duck and is about the same size. It's called a Vegavis. They lived at the end of the Cretaceous period when Tyrannosaurus rex dominated North America. And for all the latest weather news and video, be sure to follow us on social media. We also post all the latest from our team of 200 meteorologists across the country. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk or scan that QR code on the bottom left corner of your screen. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, hypothermia could be a risk for millions of people in the path of this week's winter weather and winter storms that we're going to see. We'll show you the warning signs to look out for that, and why this year's Great Lakes sturgeon spearing season could be one for the record books.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. Most of the Northeast will get a break from some storms in the coming days, but the pattern will stay active. We're in the 20s and 30s for highs this afternoon with a fair amount of sunshine. Notice some more clouds back into New York and through parts of southern New England. Now, as we go into Tuesday, a little storm system should stay mostly south of the Northeast. A little front moves through, but the steady snowfall, that may make it its way up into New Jersey and perhaps into extreme southern parts of southern New England.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Your Monday looks quiet, but there are winter storm watches posted for most of our region as we're going to be seeing some winter weather coming this way by Tuesday. So high pressure is going to be in and out just for the afternoon. And then by tomorrow, we have a pretty large storm system rolling in. It's likely to produce a good bit of snow across the region going through Tuesday into Tuesday night and even lingering into Wednesday. So temperatures are going to take a dip. We'll still get into the 40s on Monday afternoon, but much cooler as we move into Tuesday.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. We're looking at 58 in Birmingham, 49, a little bit cool in Raleigh, 78 in Jacksonville. You get those 80s down there in South Florida, feeling pretty good. On the satellite radar, we're seeing a lot of broken clouds across the southeast, but one thing to watch is a storm coming up out of Texas as we go through the day. We're going to see that developing, getting over towards the Mississippi River Valley, bringing snow, sleet, and rain in those areas, but it's going to travel over to the northeast as we get to Tuesday, disrupting travel.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Some parts of the country saw snow, including blowing snow in Wyoming near the Montana line, and Harlow the Husky was loving fresh weekend snowfall in the Green Bay area. Meanwhile, in California, recent heavy rains and water releases from a couple of Redding area dams swelled the Sacramento River outside its banks, covering some walking trails and nearly swallowing this bench.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
So as we've mentioned, millions of people are going to be dealing with winter weather this week, and with it comes the danger of hypothermia. Meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell looks at the warning signs.
The National Weather Service issues a cold weather advisory, not just necessarily because the air temperatures are cold, but because of the wind involved. The wind chill readings can take what's just regular cold air and take it into dangerous territory. If you're out and about in air with wind chill readings in the teens, single digits or below, you are at quick risk for frostbite or especially for hypothermia. So you want to know the signs of hypothermia, especially if you're going to be out and about playing or working in exceptionally cold conditions. One of the first signs is confusion, maybe not knowing your name or where you are, or what date it is, or the people around you demonstrating some signs of confusion. Certainly something to look out for. Shivering that can be uncontrolled and is just really intense and severe, also a sign that hypothermia is starting to take shape. Difficulty speaking, of course, the extreme shivering doesn't help on that front, but the confusion, the shivering all together leading to that difficulty in getting the words out. Feeling sleepy, you're starting to get into the advanced stages of hypothermia at that point, and one of the reals to have some difficulty in moving around. All very good signs to look for if you're going to be out in dangerously cold. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell.
Have you guys ever noticed that when it snows, things seem quieter, almost like Mother Nature turned the sound down? Well, just know that it's not in your head. There's actually a science behind that. And Audrey Lee has more on all of this.
So when you get lots of snowflakes with like the circle and the pointy spokes like you make in kindergarten, those tend to have a lot of air in between them. And so when freshly fallen snow falls and like it kind of falls and there's those gaps in between them, that helps absorb the sound, which makes it travel less.
The silence is most often noticeable in the morning.
As the day goes on, with cars and footsteps compacting the snow, those tiny air pockets shrink, allowing sound to travel farther. Temperature also affects the way sound waves move through the air.
When the temperature is warmer out, the sound waves tend to travel faster and further because they have like kinetic energy. So if you think like popcorn popping, you know, the molecules are vibrating, and so the sound can just travel a lot easier.
Wind can also change how we hear sounds in the winter. But not all snow is equal when it comes to sound. Different types of snow have different absorbency levels. A fresh powdery type of snow can absorb over 50% of sound, making everything around us quieter. Wet snow has some absorption, but also some reflection, which can make sound a tad muffled. But when we have ice or no snow on the ground, sound is reflected everywhere, making everything seem louder.
Forecasting winter weather isn't an exact science. For a lot of meteorologists, winter weather forecasts are some of the most challenging. One of the elements that can complicate things is called supercooled water, and meteorologist Garrett Hyde explains.
Under the right conditions, liquid water can stay liquid well below freezing, and we call this supercooled water. And it all comes down to the way things freeze. And for liquids, well, they freeze to freeze, we need two things to happen. First of which, you need to lose enough heat to at least get the overall energy out of the molecules. And the second is for those molecules to connect together, latching together to form the solid, in this case, ice. And the point at which it starts is called the nucleation site. And this is where we can start to see the ways that ice can form in two separate ways. One of which is called homogeneous nucleation. This happens when pure water gets extremely cold. For water, that's around negative 40 degrees Celsius, and it can freeze on its own. This is incredibly rare and what we usually don't see too often. The other, though, is called heterogeneous nucleation, and it is far more common. Particles like salt, dust, or pollutants can help nudge water molecules to stick together, getting water to freeze a little bit closer towards what we'd expect to right around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But every particle has an activation temperature, and this is the temperature needed for a particle to remove enough energy from a liquid molecule to push it across its phase-changing barrier and eventually forcing it to freeze. In the atmosphere, some of the more common things we'd expect those ice nuclei to be is in the form of dust or dirt. And of course, those particles can make water freeze down to around about negative 15 degrees, which is about 5 degrees Fahrenheit, which of course is much colder than the water's usual freezing point. And this explains things like freezing rain or why water in a bottle can suddenly turn to ice if you shake it or slam it hard enough. And that's also why temperature typically doesn't always determine when that ice forms. It depends on a lot of other factors and what else is in the water itself, as well as the other conditions surrounding it.
So as we've mentioned many times here on the National Weather Desk, there are several different types of fog. Radiation fog is more prevalent during the fall and winter months because of the ingredients that the fog needs to form. Meteorologist Noah Hauck explains.
Radiation fog is one of the most common types of fog that we experience here in the United States. But what is it, and how does it form? One ingredient that we look for is going to be clear skies. That's going to allow for our surface radiation with our dew point to allow those clouds to form here at the surface. Another important factor are calm winds. That's going to further allow that surface temperature to fall and equalize with that dew point to allow saturation for clouds to form. Now, that fog is going to form in the overnight hours, but as that sun comes back out, it's going to warm up those surface temperatures, and that fog is going to be on its way.
This weekend was the start to sturgeon spearing season on the Great Lakes. Anglers say that this year's harvest may be a little heavier than last season. As Eric Peterson explains, it all has to do with the weather.
Our population estimate continues to be fairly stable with 25,000 adult males and 15,000 adult females, so should be plenty of fish out there for people to go spear.
DNR sturgeon biologist Margaret Stadig says the prehistoric fish are bottom feeders, and a common food source is lake fly larvae, also known as redworms.
As for forage for the lake sturgeon, we're actually seeing an increase in the redworm populations on Lake Winnebago, which is fantastic. We've had a low year for the last 2 years, and now what we were finding in the summer is that redworm populations were back to what they usually are.
Stadig says results from a summertime trawling survey put another food source, the tiny fish called gizzard shad, well below its population average, but
there was a lot of anecdotal reports of lots of gizzard shad along the shoreline from those landowners that live along the lake. So there is the potential that there was a good number of gizzard shad kind of closer inshore compared to most other years.
And while the 2024 campaign may be remembered for poor ice conditions and a harvest well below average, Margaret Stadig says despite relatively poor water clarity, improved conditions on the ice mean the 2025 season may already be off to a better start.
In time now for a short break, but first we're going to take in some views of the New York City skyline.
Well, a very good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Snow showers kicking their way in across the plains for the day today. Otherwise, pretty quiet for your Tuesday, though. We've got some snow developing there across the south, so we're going to be seeing that in Kentucky and the lower Ohio Valley. And by the time that we get to Wednesday, man, we are really ramping up the snow, wintry mix, and rain. It's going to be wet and wintry Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Stella Sun. We've got high pressure in control, so most of the West Coast will remain dry as we move along through the rest of your Monday. But it's going to be downright cold in Seattle, 10 degrees cooler than normal at 40 degrees, 43 in Portland, low 60s in Los Angeles and in San Diego, double sixes for Las Vegas, and near 80 degrees in Phoenix and in the upper 30s towards Salt Lake City. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
There's plenty of winter left, which means snow is still a possibility in parts of the country. Meteorologist Eric Kozicka tells us how to shovel it safely.
Shoveling can be very strenuous on your body and has at times caused back injuries and even heart attacks. We want to make sure you are not pushing yourself too far. It's best to push the snow instead of lifting the snow. That can ease some of the weight that's put on your body and your joints. But we also want you to dress warm to avoid any hypothermia or frostbite risk. It's best to stay hydrated. It's also best to move just small amounts of snow every time, pushing the snow rather than lifting, as we mentioned. And you can even do it in waves, maybe once during the snow halfway through and once at the end. That'll reduce the weight of the snowfall. And it's good to take frequent breaks. If you do half of your driveway, go take a break inside, warm yourself up before getting back to it and finishing the job.
If you're looking for some more weather content, check us out on social media. You can find us on all your favorite platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Emma Withrow. Make it a great day, and we'll see you right back here